Hello, and welcome to Brother Be Well. I'm your host, Justin Martinez, and this is the BBW Youth Chat Series. Today, we will be discussing mental health across generations, a youth perspective. Joining me during this discussion is Associate Marriage and Family Therapist from HearYou.org, Mr. Malik Sampson. How you doing, Malik? Brother Be Well Clinical Advisor, Dr. Michael Houston. Hello.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
You too. Brother Be Well Advisor, Jacob Vargas. And mental health advocate and Brother Be Well Clinical Advisor, Dr. Patrick Ma. Excuse me. Hey, Patrick. We also have our incredible youth guest in attendance, Richard Toledo and Ted Ngatia. What's up, gentlemen? How you doing today?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
How's it going, Justin?
Really well, really well. Glad to have you all here. As always, it's a pleasure. It's an honor. This is a really good topic that we're going to talk about today. You know, mental health across generations. I know it's definitely going to get deep. So I'm looking forward to diving right into it. You know, mental health across generations. For me and my experience, from my perspective, my grandfather on my dad's side was one who became an orphan due to his mother having mental health issues and being sent into a he called it a crazy home, you know, back in the early 1930s, during the Great Depression. You know, so mental health was definitely stigmatized as a Latino man from him, and passed on into his life, onto my father, into myself. So I'm very honored to be here to talk to you guys today about your mental health perspective across generations in your life. What is your experience with mental health from your elders? I'll just open up the floor. Like, how did your elders approach mental health, and was it stigmatized in your household, in your culture?
I can go ahead and speak. So in my household, mental health was one thing that we didn't really talk about too much. And whenever we had cases of or signs of someone having mental health in my family, I don't think the empathy aspect was shown the way that it should be. And I think that's a lot of cultural things that goes along with that. And I'm sure we'll dive a lot into the cultural elements of it. But specifically speaking of my family and the culture, I think that my family wasn't being, intentionally unempathetic to people that were in my family that was experiencing it, but they weren't necessarily aware of mental health. They weren't aware of these experiences that people were feeling because we weren't used to it. So when we see a family member that's, going through different types of psychosis or depression, anxiety, a lot of times it gets looked over in my family as, oh, they're just being a little dramatic or something is wrong with them, but they're not actually understanding that there's a legit issue behind it. And I think now I'm seeing that, but it took my family a while to get there.
Yeah, definitely. Awareness plays a big role. Jacob, I think you had a thought.
Yeah, so I definitely like to jump in, and I 100% agree. I have very, very similar experiences going with my family. One of the biggest messages I got when I was growing up is that mental health issues, mental illness, it was kind of through culture, and that it was sort of seen as a moral or individual failure. And that lesson that I learned really young as a child through my parents kind of stuck with me. And it wasn't until I grew up a lot later that I learned, I was like, that's incorrect. That's not a healthy way to think about mental illness and mental wellness and mental illness. I think that it's so narrow. It doesn't really capture all of the external influences and causes of mental health issues and mental illness. And so I think right off the bat, growing up, I started off almost with a handicap. I didn't really understand mental wellness very much at all. It wasn't until as much later that I really figured out how complex the issue really was.
Yeah, definitely. Just scratching the surface, you know.
I'll continue with that thought. In my family, I believe, there was a lot of ignorance around mental health and mental illness. So, there often, there is also a little bit of fear factor because people are ignorant about the issue. And I think the best that my family have done for other members with mental illness or even other people that, family, friends, or whomever who have a mental illness is show them pity. It's not empathy. Empathy or sympathy is something that you show kindness to someone who is experiencing hardship. Pity is just when you feel bad, but not really understanding, trying to understand or try to offer support to the person who's in need. And as a religious person, I'm a Buddhist, and Buddhism run deep in my family. My grandpa used to run a temple. A lot of family member believes that if you have a mental illness, you've done something in your past life that is carried forward to this generation, to this life, where you're now paying for the price. So if you have a mental illness, not only that it is a handicap, issue, but it's also something that you've done to yourself. And now, as a clinician, definitely learning more about mental illness, it's contradicting with what I learned now and what I knew then, and understanding that mental illness has genetic component, has an environmental component, and then has also something else that we call epigenetic, which is
Yeah.
you were born with the gene, and then the environment act on that gene and help you, or in this case, push you to express those genes and lead you into developing a mental illness. So it's interesting to compare and contrast to what I learned back then.
Right, right. Yeah, I feel like the epigenetic thing was tied to the Holocaust survivors, if I'm not mistaken, Patrick. That when if one was in the Holocaust dealing with extreme torturous environments, and maybe they had a child in their womb, and they had that child showed a lot of mental health issues throughout their life as an adult, even though they weren't there physically present for the torture that they were going through. Something like that. I'm totally paraphrasing, but I like the point that you made. And it brings up this question too, like, if all this is true and we have these generations, different perspectives, how do we break the cycles as young people behind the mental health stigma? How do we create new cycles? How do we make finding mental health support cool, or something that's vital?
I think that we're already heading that direction compared to previous generations. As everybody has mentioned, it was highly stigmatized back then. If you had mental issues, nobody assumed that you were born with it. It was just you did drugs, or something happened in your life that you did, and it was your fault. Over time, now I feel like a lot of commercials, mental health awareness, chats, therapy, all that is I mean, it's still stigmatized by older people, but now I feel like certain youth and people of today are trying to understand more reasoning behind the mental health aspect, like Patrick said, the gene or environmental, aspects to mental health, or other ways is teaching it in school. Teaching it in school to kids that mental health is something that is not, that you could be stigmatized as a crazy person. It's something that people just go through, and you could, either find treatment, whether it's medication or therapy. But I think it begins at a young age. As young as elementary, just talking about it and accepting it for oneself. it's one thing showing and bringing awareness to other people who had not had any kind of mental health issues, and then it's one thing admitting to oneself who has gone through that to accept that you need assistance and actually be able to find those resources. Luckily, internet is progressing. Just a quick Google search, therapy sessions, all that. And I think gathering up with your community and making posters, making gatherings amongst each other, going to certain churches who that accept that mental health is something that needs to be addressed. I'm sure there are other resources that bring awareness to it.
Right. On that note, it's a perfect segue. Malik, if I could call on you to advocate a little bit on behalf of hearyou.org and the free therapy service that they provide. If you can expand on that a little bit, Malik.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. So right now their SATCO lab is doing free sessions for people that have been affected by COVID, and you go through that by going through hearyou.org. And I wanted to touch on too the importance of, to answer the question as well as that, is the importance of therapy, and it's important for us to not see therapy as a privilege anymore, and look at it as a necessity, and not in a necessity to where someone has to go to see a therapist once a week for the rest of their life, but just as much as when we look at physical health and we look at dental. So and you think about these things, when I think about therapy, I want therapy to come as naturally across people's mind as it does when you say, oh, I want to go get my body checked out, I want to go get a physical before I can do this. Well, why not just go speak with a therapist and talk things through? Because when you take away that stigma from it, I think that's just what's going to help us get through the situation, or get through certain situations. But I think looking at it as this shouldn't be a privilege. And I think for a very long time, having the ability to go to therapy is something that a lot of people from our culture, and specifically, I can only speak to my own and my family, no one actually even looked at the ideas of therapy. So now that it's so accessible and it's out there, I think it's time to just give it a new perspective, look at it from a new perspective and a new lens. And I'm thankful that hearyou.org is allowing us to provide services for people in need right now.
Absolutely. Thank you for touching on that, Malik. What an incredible resource for all of us to utilize if we are in need.